I've been living in recovery for 8 years.
I've been living in recovery for 2 years.
For 3 years.
27 years.
Addiction is a disease.
You have the power to fight this.
It's easier when you know the facts.
The fact is, addiction is a disease.
The more you know, the more supportive and compassionate neighbor,
friend,
family member,
Hoosier you can be. Go to knowthefactsindiana.org to learn more about opioid and substance use disorders, treatment, and recovery.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Karen Vaughn from 106.7 WTLC. You can listen to my show weekdays while you're working from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. And I am here as your moderator during this special panel during our Inspire You virtual expo. We're going to see various panels and experiences throughout the weekend. So thank you so much for joining us. And remember to follow us on social at 1067 WTLC and subscribe to our YouTube page to check out all the panels. This panel in particular is a panel of hope and help. It is from Know the Facts Indiana. You can follow them on social media at Know the Facts, and their website is knowthefactsindiana.com. I'm going to be speaking with Tracy Clark in just a bit, but today our panel's focus is on recovery, stigma, and the Black woman's experience, a conversation on how addiction impacts our community and what we can do to lift each other up as we continue this weekend of inspiration. So I would like to bring on right now Tracey Clark. She is an LSS Greenbelt, a volunteer service manager for the Alliance for Substance Abuse Progress. Thank you so much, Tracy, for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I love the part when we talk about lifting each other up, right? Because addiction is a disease. And I think many do forget that. And we're going to highlight that today. And some people that you've helped throughout the way, you're going to see and view their stories, you know, but let's definitely start with Know the Facts and their program and what they do to lift up those here in Indiana.
Yeah, Know the Facts is a campaign. We're in the, excuse me, I'm gonna put my glasses back on. Is the state of Indiana's initiative to spread factual information about substance use disorder, treatment, and recovery. I think it's always great when talking about Know the Facts or anything dealing with substance use disorder that recovery is possible and there's always hope for recovery. Mm-hmm. The goals of the initiative are to spread awareness, provide recovery, educational resources, and to create empathy among Hoosiers for those who are fighting addiction. Know the Facts was previously known as the Know the O, and is in its fourth year statewide of answering the call to opioid use disorder and substance use disorder.
Awesome. So can you tell us about your role and what you do each day as the volunteer services manager?
Yeah, I sure can. I have the pleasure of working down in Columbus, Indiana. I work for the Alliance for Substance Abuse Progress. And that was that county's answer to the opioid epidemic, the response to the overdoses that were occurring in their community. The Alliance for Substance Abuse Progress, or ASAP, leads the effort to identify and establish system-wide solutions to substance misuse and substance use disorder. And it's a partner in advocacy, education, and support for the health of our community and every person in it. And so I work for, so that's like my umbrella, ASAP Inc. And then under there, we have the ASAP Hub, which is where I serve daily as the volunteer services manager. And the hub is just exactly what it sounds like, a central location for anybody who is suffering from substance use disorder. And when I say anybody, I mean the actual person that's been diagnosed or who is suffering from substance use disorder, their family member, maybe a loved one, someone calling to just connect somebody to resources. That hub is that central location for you to go and get that factual information and that support that you need. So I do help clients out on a day-to-day basis with general casework. In addition to that, when establishing our 501c3, we recognized that we were going to need a lot of help from volunteers. And when you have volunteers, you want to make sure you have a point person in there to manage those volunteers. And that's my main role and responsibility, is to take care of the 25 plus volunteers that we have helping us with the mission of helping stamp out substance use disorder, helping destroy that stigma, and making sure that everybody knows that recovery is possible.
Yeah. And with the onset of the pandemic, what type of cases are you seeing due to COVID? Because people are just feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders,
They are.
from continuous death to the different killings that we've seen over the summer, to dealing with things within their own household financially.
Right.
How have you been able to help those in the masses in regards to the pandemic?
So one of the great things is that the world of technology has opened up for us. When you go to knowthefactsindiana.org, you can click on there. It is a very interactive website. You can find resources in any part of the state. And it will get you to what you need to start your recovery journey, or if you're in your recovery journey, it can help you continue that. So there are resources on there, like for support groups, to help you, like AA or NA, things like that nature, so that you can attend a virtual group. Almost every intensive outpatient program that I know of is now basically has those virtual appointments, just like we're talking together today. We're not in the studio together,
right?
So it's a whole different feel. But you can log in to your computer or on your phone and talk to your provider. I know down in Columbus, and I know there are many places in Indianapolis as well, where you can just go to a parking lot, stand there or in your car and log on to that free Wi-Fi that's provided by the city, and log into these websites. What we especially know now is that this particular demographic leans into physical touch. And so the pandemic was especially hard for them, because it not only did we take away their physical touch, but it was gone instantaneously. Like, whoop, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, you can't connect with anybody. And so when you have a demographic that maybe has lost their family, their parents even, work, and then they can't go into that support group and connect with their peers, it creates this instantaneous void. And for this vulnerable demographic, they go back to old habits often. And so we had a high rate of relapse. Again, knowthefactsindiana.org. You can go on there, you can look at the rates of relapse that occurred, and just know that we are here. Relapse is a part of this disease. We recognize that. And while we always hope that it never occurs, when it does occur, we just look to start again. And the resources are available. And where we can be in person, we try to be in person, because we know how great that physical touch is for this group. Yeah.
So how can one participate in your various campaigns, and why do you support Know the Facts?
Let me tell you, Know the Facts it's just a great thing. Like, I think one of the most important things we need to do in regards to substance use disorder is stamp out stigma. And I think stigma for people of color, there's this stigma that if you use drugs or illicit substances, that you're a certain kind of person. On top of that, for people of color, we already have all these other stigmas that go with our skin tone. And so knowing that education is the key to stamping out stigma, like we don't say addict, we say a person with substance use disorder. We don't say fallback, we say setback or relapse, things of that nature. I support Know the Facts Indiana, because it's a one-stop shop to get all of that information. It can connect you to recovery resources. It can connect you to the facts concerning substance use disorder, which most importantly, the biggest thing that it lets you know is that this is a disease. There's no difference between being afflicted or affected by substance use disorder than have diabetes, having high blood pressure, being diagnosed with cancer. They're all chronic illnesses that are treatable. There is a chance for recovery in all of these diseases.
Yeah.
So to get involved with ASAP, somebody can simply log on to asapbc.org. And to get involved with knowthefactsindiana.org, same thing. Get on there, and there's a tab for you to say get involved. So, and it's one of the cooler websites that I've seen as well. It has a little quiz, so you read through the website, and then it gives you a test to help you understand whether or not you really read what you read. So I love that about it too.
Yes,
Little surprise quiz in there.
The more interactive, the better. You just feel like you're hands-on,
right?
You're healing, and that's really what it is.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
And to your point in regards to a stigma in our community, feeling ignored and minimized, and just the crisis that we're dealing with, in our community on so many levels.
Right.
Taking it from a healing standpoint feels more like I can get through it in success than being beaten down because of what you're going through.
Right. It feels like hope. It feels like hope. And when we look at the history of substance use disorder, especially in the Black community, when this really began plaguing our community, there wasn't this attention. And there wasn't this this focus. There wasn't this many resources, and the cost. Yeah, like who could, here we were trying to put food on the table, and now you want me to help you with an addiction issue or substance use disorder. Where am I supposed to find the money for that? Right. I think one of the greatest things about the state of Indiana is Medicaid, or the HIP program, covers inpatient and outpatient substance use disorder care. And so something like over 85,000 Hoosiers have accessed Medicaid resources to help them with their disease.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
It's the more you ask, the more you know, but not being ashamed to ask for help.
It is so crucial. And I think that we have to, go back and say to ourselves, just because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we weren't the focus, to ignore the resources now, to not access the resources now is like, it's a disservice to ourselves. Like recovery is possible. There's hope in this now. There's resources, there's help, and there's help for every part of the family, not just the person going through the disease, but the person that is supporting them as well. It's all there. And all we have to do is reach out and touch it. One of the other cool facts about knowthefactsindiana.org is it has some great stories on there. And one of them is Tony's story. And so I was attending an update meeting about Know the Facts. And so they started talking about Tony. And he starts telling this story about his addiction story. And he says that he was living in Muncie. And in Muncie, there was one place where the Black people went for inpatient treatment. And he didn't want to go there because it was like this revolving door that people went in, stayed clean for a hot minute, stayed clean for their 30 days in treatment, came out and got back involved in drugs. And so he called a friend that, eventually lifts him out. And I don't want to tell his whole story because I want y'all to go to Know the Facts Indiana and listen to this gentleman's story because it is awesome. But what clicked in my mind when he said what he said was there was one place that Black people went. There is not one place that Black people go. We can go wherever we need to go. And we should feel empowered to reach out for help, no matter what part of the state we're in, no matter what level of care we need, and no matter where that care is being offered. There is not one specific place for anybody. We can go anywhere we want to go now.
Right. And knowing that is important because there's a low percentage of people of color seeking treatment and going
Correct.
for treatment. And when you look at the stats, like here's a few stats from the 2018 National Survey on Drug Use and Health. 66.9% of African Americans have a substance use disorder compared to the rate of 7.4% among the total population. I'll give you
Correct.
another stat. African Americans are more likely to use crack than any other ethnic group in the United States. A recent study indicates a much higher rate of lifetime crack cocaine use among African Americans is 4.6% compared to Caucasians, which is 3.7%, and Hispanics, 2.3%. But we aren't the ones going to get the treatment.
We are not. And I think, a big part of that is, again, stigma and shame. And this idea that we cannot or we're not allowed to go somewhere or that we shouldn't ask for help. This idea that has or this stereotype that's been placed on people of color is that we're always asking for a handout and that help is a handout. And none of that is true. None of that is true at all. This help exists to help everyone. And if you have an issue, and if you are affected by this disease, if you are suffering from this disease, you should be empowered to ask for help. If your mom or your dad or your auntie, your husband, your brother, your uncle, I don't care who it is, you should ask for help. There is no shame in asking for help. The shame comes from the stigma that says you should sit in your house in a corner, continuing use and not asking for help. There's the shame. The shame is not in asking for help. It is ignoring the fact that you have a disease. And, I want to say that again and again and again throughout this conversation. You have a disease. There is treatment available. Recovery is possible.
Yes. Yes. And, and speaking of that, we've talked about Tony throughout our chat. And I think that, now is a great time to let everyone see his story and show the success that he's had through going through your program.
I never thought that I would be addicted to crack cocaine. And even though I used to tell myself that I didn't look like those people, I was just as addicted as they were. I had a friend who was a drug dealer, so being young, dumb, and stupid, we tried it, and before I even knew that I was addicted, I was addicted. I liked to dress. I had a favorite outfit that I used to love this outfit. One day I woke up and put that outfit on, and the pants fell off. They just slid off me with no belt or anything. And when I looked in the mirror, the first thing I thought to myself was, you were not raised this way. Your mother did not raise you to be an addict. So it was then that I knew that I needed help and that I needed to do something, that my life had to change. But from what I had seen in the African American community, so many people went to rehab and they come back out and they're doing the same thing. I just packed up all my clothes, all my belongings. If it wasn't for my family, I don't think I would have made it. When you have an addiction, you feel shame, you feel bad, you feel judged, you feel labeled, you feel like people are looking down upon you. People need to understand that this is a disease, and there's recovery, and there's treatment out there. So when you see somebody that has an addiction, what you need to do is just tell them, hey, I'm here for you. When you're ready, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, wear the crown. I'm lucky to be alive. Recovery is possible. There's hope, and hope means recovery for everybody.
And so, there it is.
Yeah.
Tony's story is great. It's awesome. We're doing some great work down in Columbus as well with our program, getting people into treatment, I want to stop again and really talk about the people that surround people who like Tony. Like that is very important that we remember that it's not just the person who is suffering from substance use disorder that is going through this. It is normally an entire family. A lot of times by the time people reach out for help, it is at the point where they've lost everything. They've lost their job, they've lost their, their family, their friends. It is very important to use tools like Know the Facts Indiana to learn more about this disease so that you can continue that support for your loved one as they enter into recovery and find a way to rebuild that relationship. Tony talks about his friend that he picked up the phone and called. And if that friend had not been there to offer him that space to grow, heal, and recover, we may have lost Tony. Or how many Tonys have we lost because, they didn't have that space or that support? KnowTheFactsIndiana.org is a great tool to learn about substance use disorder.
Mm-hmm. I loved when he said towards the end that I'm here for you. So
Yeah.
he turned his testimony, his test into his testimony, but even further, wanting to help others, wanting to dive in and give others hope and give them motivation and inspiration and just be there as a sounding board to help them through their moment of crisis, to help them through the disease as well. Yeah. And that just speaks to his character and the great work that you all do.
His story is, it's like all of those things, but it's also empowerment. Like, I did this, you can do this. Like, lean into me, lean into these resources, and let that build you up so that you can move forward in your recovery. We say it all the time, recovery is possible. This is a disease, there is treatment there, recovery is possible.
Yeah. And, we look at Tony's story and it mirrors so many stories, across the Indiana area and beyond in the region. And, with us also having a focus on Black women, that, feel like they have to hold it down for the household and their family and the pressures of that, especially during the pandemic. What have you seen? And can you speak to the help that you've given to African-American women?
So, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
We have an edit button, so
okay.
It's all good. Just collect your thought and we'll
okay.
No problem.
So, what I want to say is this. I'm watching a culture that glorifies, opioid use, heroin, lean, pills. Like, we look at some of the rappers who are, I think it was Juice WRLD that, swallowed a whole bunch of pills on the plane. We are more susceptible to this because we think that this is a part of our culture and a part of our lives. Like, we need to do these things in order to be Black. And as Black women, we are trying so hard to hold a family together and to just keep people alive. And then I've got, I turn on BET or whatever, and I see this whole glamorization of, opioid use or drug use. I'm finding myself helping women understand what this disease is, what it's about, and why we have to take time to educate our children about, how to be proud of who we are. We don't have to do all of these things to be successful. We don't have to, even if we enter into the entertainment business, it is not a prerequisite that we be involved with drugs in order to be a successful rapper. It just doesn't, that's not what it means. And that it is okay to say no to those things. Again, the stigma is, we're hanging out, we're together, we got to be drinking, we got to be using some drugs, we got to be doing that. And we're doing all these things knowing that when we get in trouble, we're not going to ask for help. that we're worried about asking for help. We're worried about looking weak as Black men asking for help. We're worried about, Black women are worried about asking for help because it denotes a chink in their armor. You know, Black women, we are the strength of the family and carry the world on our backs. And when we have to, I can do it all. I got this. I don't need that. If I think about asking for help or saying that I need help, everything will just unravel. It's not the case, and it's not the truth. The truth is that if you lean into resources, it is easier to keep your family alive. It is easier to keep your family together. And the burden is not, you learn quickly that the burden is not yours alone. You're not the only family going through this, and you're not the only person that is leading a loved one through this fight. We quickly learn that this is the best way to survive. This is the best way to instill hope. And education is key to not having the cycle repeat throughout our family time and time again. If I treat my loved one and support them through their substance use disorder, then I teach my children about what we just went through. I have an opportunity to stop the cycle, to stop the glamorization, and do something different, learn something new.
Yeah, and to your point in regards to what we see, through the eyes of the industry,
right?
Overall,
it's like a normal behavior for us.
Yeah, it's more importantly to have a strong support system. When you have a strong support system and those that hold you accountable, and not having yes men or yes women, you tend to veer a straighter line.
Yeah.
Because you feel accountable for one thing or another. Everybody has their vice, right? Whether it's alcohol, shopping, so on and so forth. But it's the power that we have in ourselves, and certain people tap into that at certain times in their life. And it's okay to have that cry for help, not knowing what's going on. So they self-medicate through drugs, or self-medicate, through alcohol, and they're all diseases, right? But no one knows that until they've gone through it, unfortunately. So having an opportunity to understand what you're going through and understand the disease, and then admit that, yes, I have a problem, right? And if you think back through the cycle of it all, I remember, in the 80s, the war on drugs, and the commercial with the egg dropping in the hot skillet saying, this is your brain on drugs, just to send a powerful message that this can harm you, right? To now where we have the opioid situation, and we want to help you. It wasn't a sign of help back then. It was like, oh, this is what could happen to you. You shouldn't do it. Just don't do it. That necessarily wasn't the best message. In my opinion, it just scared you into not doing it, right? But there were people doing it. Now it's, we want to help you. We want to give you a hug, but more or less, it's not necessarily in our community getting those messages. So we have to start by letting people know, like, listen, let's start where you are. Let's help you where you are. And that's where Know the Facts Indiana comes in.
Yeah, Know the Facts Indiana is a great resource to learn about the legal things that are going on as well. The cry of our society, as crack emerged, as crack and heroin emerged into our community at alarming rates, was we have to do something. We need to do something now. And so the message was all negative. There was a war on drugs. So we criminalized what we already knew was a disease.
Yes.
We locked people up. We broke up the support system. I'm going to put you away, and now you'll be away from your support system. We learned quickly that the egg, this is your brain, in the hot frying pan, this is your brain on drugs. Those messages didn't work. I loved how you said it scared you. But here was the deal, Karen. Did it scare you? Because it didn't scare enough people. We still had an emerging crisis within our community that was, we couldn't control it. We couldn't control it. And this idea that we could criminalize it, as if arresting people had ever stopped them from doing anything else before, um, it wasn't effective. It wasn't effective. But science is trial and error. And as the science has gotten better, our hope is that society will get better. Um, Again, we need to help people see and understand that this is a disease. And when you put it in the mind frame of disease, you automatically hear treatment. Like, so if I tell you you have cancer, then you say, okay, do I have to do radiation and chemo? You know, what's going to happen when I do that? What stage is this disease? And then what's the outcome possibly of my treatment? And the earlier, and we also know that the earlier you enter into treatment, the better chance there is for recovery. So, you don't have to wait until you lose everything with substance use disorder before you reach out to help. If your child or your loved one is suffering, you don't have to wait for them to reach out. You can go to Know the Facts Indiana and click on it and be like, have that conversation, that hard conversation, and say to your loved one, hey, look, I think there's a problem here. This is what I learned about your disease. Did you know that your brain is now broken, that you have altered your brain and it's not operating properly? But more than that, I can take you somewhere and we can get you some medicine and treat your disease, and you can be better. We can heal our family, we can heal you, and we can walk this walk together. It is important that the so-called war on drugs, for all that it's worth and all that it was supposed to do, sent 31 million people to jail. 31 million. You would think after the first million, if that was an effective mode to end a crisis or end a problem, we probably would have learned after the first million. 31 million people later, you still have some people shouting, lock them up, when that has never been the answer and will never be the answer. I need to give you a hug to get through this, because this will not be easy. It is a lifelong journey. It will be hard. You are going to need to be able to lean into someone and ask for help. So I need to be there for you. In my community, in every community in America, recovery is possible. I want you to know that if you lean into me or an organization like mine, there's an opportunity for you to make it. There is an opportunity for you to make it. And you don't need to be perfect to make this walk. You need to just simply take the first step. One of the things I tell my clients all the time, I'll take every step with you that you decide to take. I can't take any steps for anybody else. All I can do is take a step with you that you choose to take. And every one step that you take in recovery is one less step that we have to worry about locking somebody up, criminalizing a disease. We don't criminalize any other disease in America except for substance use disorder. We don't criminalize this behavior in any other way except for this. We've made it dirty. We've made it criminal, and it's a disease. It is a disease. So now, really, in the last 5 years, here we are in 2020, and in the last 5 years, we're finally saying that. We're finally saying this is a disease. It changes your brain, and it's not a choice. For a long time, people have said they're a drug addict because they want to be, and now we know that they are suffering from substance use disorder because their brain has been altered. That's two totally different ends of the scope. I'm glad we're pushing forward. I'm glad that KnowTheFactsIndiana.org is in its 5th year. I'm proud to have been with the ASAP Hub in Columbus since its inception. ASAP Inc. has been around for 4 or 5 years, but the Hub is really 18 months old. We knew. We just celebrated our 1-year birthday in last August. So I'm proud because organizations like mine and the work that we're doing every day show that communities are ready to respond to this in a different way. that they recognized that this is a disease and the way we criminalized it did not work.
You know, when it comes to sensitivity training for healthcare professionals that are working with various clients, can you speak to the training and the sensitivity training that they're receiving so one will feel comfortable when they come in?
You know, again, I think one of the first things that we really had to do when we started talking about opioids was reduce the amount of prescribed opioids flowing into the community. There was a time where doctors kind of told you to suck it up if you were in pain. Again, science changed, and science said if you treat pain, people will heal quicker. And so companies learned quickly that we're making pain medication, that if I teach doctors how to ask about pain, then I can give them this legal medication to help them feel better. And so now everybody can go to a doctor and get a pill and be legally, quote unquote, high. And so, so one of the first things we had to do with our physicians is to get them to step back from that methodology and that thought process that they needed to treat every person in pain with an opioid prescription. There are some other things in there in between opioids and, Tylenol that they can use to treat pain. And teaching them that they did not have to flood, dentists were especially important. You know, kids get their wisdom teeth and get dental work all the time, and they were giving them a 30-day prescription of opioids, a 30 days amount worth of opioids. Who wants their 15-year-old taking oxycodone or narco for 30 straight days?
No.
And then think nothing bad is going to happen from that. So we had to change that language or that methodology there. Then we had to teach them what these medications really do, how they do the brain, and why they should want to, change that methodology. And when people come in seeking pain medicine, now doctors are looking for that. Like, I don't want to prescribe to you because it sounds like you're seeking medication. We taught doctors how to go in and look at medical records to make sure that this person wasn't going from ER to ER and doctor to doctor looking for prescriptions. We taught doctors or physicians how to begin to treat people like people, listen to what they're telling you and treat what needs to be treated, and not just a one size fits everyone type of treatment where you're just prescribing a pill instead of listening to what that person needs and offering them that type of treatment. You know, when you have people in recovery and we've taught you this language, this different stuff. Now, as a doctor, when somebody comes in and says, I'm going through this or going through that, or they're planning a surgery, they can tell you, I'm in recovery. Can we talk about how we're going to treat my pain without a narcotic pain medicine? Like, how can I get through this pain? Because anytime you talk about surgery or you break a bone or something like that, what are you most worried about? Pain. So being sensitive to people who are in recovery and knowing to ask that question during an appointment is important, and knowing ways to treat pain without an opioid prescription is critical. It's critical. The other thing is, people get these prescriptions. Again, you take it for 2 or 3 days. Now you have 27 days worth of opioids in your cabinet that you're not monitoring, not paying attention to. Again, teaching, doctors to be sensitive to prescribe the least amount needed. You're in recovery. Let's talk about that. People have to be able to speak to their physicians so that they can stick with their recovery. So it's important. It's important.
So if there is someone that's watching now that wants help, or someone that's watching now that knows someone that needs help, I know right now it's an all hands on deck into making sure that everyone is accounted for. How do they go about getting the help that they need?
Again, logging on to knowthefacts, Indiana.org is probably the smartest way to start your journey. It's going to identify and educate you. It's going to point you to all the different resources that are available. You have inpatient treatment, you have outpatient treatment, you have therapy, things of that nature that are all connected, and then support groups that are all connected on there, as well as another important thing is sober living after you've completed treatment,
Right.
Allowing you a safe place to begin your recovery. You can find recovery resources near you at www.in.gov /FSSA.addiction or / addiction are some other great ways to find treatment options. And if you're in crisis, you can always dial 211 and press 3 or 6 to be connected to a peer recovery expert that can help guide you into your recovery journey as well.
And when it comes to a long-term recovery or a quicker recovery, how is that determined?
That's going to be determined with that first conversation.
Okay.
Whether you reach out to 211, you go find, BeWellIndiana.org. You can use them as well. You can use ASAP Inc. ASAPBC.org. We're going to talk to you. All of us are going to talk to you. We're going to find out how much you're using, what type of substance you're using, and then we're going to guide you to what we think you may need. Again, inpatient treatment is where you may go to a facility for up to 28 days. You're in a facility. They're treating you every day. You're going through classes. You're being educated about your disease. You're receiving, potentially, that's where medicated assisted treatment may start. There are 3 FDA approved medicines to help treat addiction as well. And, you may need to start there. Or let's say you're not using as, enough that you would meet the threshold for that type of treatment. You may need to go to an intensive outpatient treatment program, or IOP is what that's often called. And so that's where you're walking into an outpatient clinic, probably at least 3 times a week. You are again going through classes. You can start medicated assisted treatment that way as well. And you probably are going to be coupling that with individual therapy as well. You can also, enter treatment. There are places that will help you become abstinent free. The NA method of the 12 steps without any medication is also available. Celebrate Recovery is another great resource of abstinence type behavior with steps that you can join into and lean into for recovery.
Okay. And those that are assisting one that's in treatment, what are some best practices they can do? My last question here, to help someone through. I heard Tony talk about, feeling judged and feeling scared. How do we break that stigma, but be able to help somebody through that?
Right. I think the idea, one of the greatest resources that we have now is recovery coaching. And I think the greatest, my greatest education have become from recovery coaches. And so these are people who have successfully navigated recovery, and now they're leading other people through it. And so when I hear them talk to their clients, sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I see how maybe what I said was judgmental or what, because you don't know what you don't know as well, even as a professional. So learning to ask questions and being willing to fully listen to what the person is saying. If you have never been in their shoes, then you shouldn't talk about you understanding that that you've been in their shoes, because you don't. You don't know what it's like.
Right.
More importantly, you probably don't want to know. What they're telling you is nobody wants to feel like I feel right now. I want to feel how you feel. And so learning to speak, again, using non-stigmatizing language instead of calling them an addict, saying things like you are affected by substance use disorder, that you have a disease, it's not a choice. I had a setback instead of a relapse. I didn't have a dirty urinalysis. My urinalysis was positive for a substance. All those different ways that we can speak a language that is non-stigmatizing, and educating ourselves with the way people are stigmatized are two of the greatest things that any professional working in this field can possibly do.
Excellent. Well, Tracy, you have been a wealth of knowledge and information. Just thank you so much for the great work that you continue to do in the region. And, you're always welcome. So we can always chat about things to help our community be better and do better, right? That's what we're all
Absolutely,
about.
absolutely.
Do better and do better. And for those that are watching and would like to know more information, you can log on to knowthefactsindiana.org or follow on Facebook and Twitter at Know the Facts. That's just at and then Know the Facts to be engaged with conversation and share thoughts and learn more facts about substance use disorder in Indiana. And before we go, one more thing that we want to do is we want to show you in full picture what Know the Facts does and what they're all about. And we'll show their commercial now. And again, thank you so much, Tracy.
Thanks for having me. One quick thing I want to also say, Karen, if somebody is struggling or in crisis right now, don't forget to hit 211 on your phone and get the help that you need. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for being here.
I've been living in recovery for 8 years.
I've been living in recovery for 2 years.
For 3 years.
27 years.
Addiction is a disease.
You have the power to fight this.
It's easier when you know the facts.
The fact is, addiction is a disease.
The more you know, the more supportive and compassionate neighbor,
Friend.
Family member.
Hoosier you can be. Go to knowthefactsindiana.org to learn more about opioid and substance use disorders, treatment, and recovery.